Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Be S.H.E podcast. That's be seen, be heard, and be empowered. And I am joined today by my special guest, Laura Morlando. I can't wait to dive in deep with her. So let me introduce her, and then we are going to get started. So Laura Morlando, the Stress Commando, helps professionals and businesses network stress-free, work stress-free, and look stress-free so they can be more effective and confident. She's the founder and CEO of Down and Dirty Networking, helping professionals and entrepreneurs co-elevate, collaborate, and connect. So welcome, Laura. I am super excited to dive in today with you and get down and dirty. Let's do this.
Let's do this. I'm so excited. Thanks for having me, Heidi.
Thank you for joining me today. I know you are a super busy woman, so I appreciate you taking your time to join us and share your expertise and your story and your journey with our audience, because you have a really special story about and journey of one that you're presently going through, and also what got you to be doing what you're doing in your business, helping other businesses and entrepreneurs. So can you start, I guess let's start with your story.
Well, yeah, it's two trajectory changing moments that brought me here to this day. So I was the corporate professional climbing the ladder, focused on, the salary, the title, and how do we get all of those things. And so I was doing that. And at that time, my father was kind of doing the same thing, looking for a post-retirement career. And he was incredibly stressed out about finances and all the things that were revolving around that. And he ends up getting diagnosed with 2 rare forms of cancer. I don't believe that is a coincidence that he got diagnosis at the most stressed out time of his life. And in that moment, my father could no longer work. My mother became his physical caregiver, and I became the financial breadwinner. And my brother was helping out wherever he could. He was in college. And so everything changed. And what I realized is I inherited more than just my curly hair from my dad. I was actually doing and living and working the same way he was. Just go, 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 go. If you were busy, you were productive. Okay, let me just tell you right now, spoiler alert, that is not a healthy way to be, but that is how I was in that moment. I was doing what my dad was doing and what the behavior he was modeling. And in that moment, I started to really forge what is now the Stress Commando. And everything changed. I no longer cared about the title, the salary. I just wanted my dad well. I wanted to have quality relationships. I wanted things to be meaningful and purposeful. So that was the first trajectory change. I transitioned out of corporate America. I started my own business and company. And that was all after my father had passed. And oh, by the way, I just decided to move, start a couple different other side jobs. And oh, by the way, get married. So pretty much every major stressor in your life,
yes,
I did this in like an 8-month time period. So let's just say I was an overachiever on stress. I felt like I got a PhD in stress and how you do that. And so my focus was to stay present, to really have those meaningful conversations and make things as simple as possible. So I did that for several years. Fast forward to 2017. And I started learning that simple wasn't simple enough, because now I'm getting a diagnosis for 2 autoimmunes and Lyme disease. And so now with this diagnosis, my brain could no longer handle the simple steps that I had that I learned with my dad. And so if you're sitting there and you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's me. I am totally getting a PhD in stress. It's raining and it's pouring. Oh my gosh, all these simple steps are too much for my brain to absorb. You are not alone. I felt like I was on that island of alone. I was the only one going through this. I had to figure this out by myself and had no one really to support me. Those things were not true. They were not true at all, but that's how I felt. And so where I'm at right now is, okay, how do I work in a way that can serve me? I can still show up with what I want. And so this latest journey has been an incredible gift of self-awareness, but also grace and permission to myself and those that I work with to do the same thing, to take a breath, to have a moment, and you can be your best self, even if you don't have a lot to give. So I'll wrap with this, Heidi, is I always used to say, I will give you 110%, right? As a female in a minority, I felt I had to be better than perfect just to be considered average. And so I was of that mindset, 110%. Okay, the reality is you can't give 110%. You only have 100, right? So what I've learned in this journey is my 100% is going to go up and down like a roller coaster. Today, my 100% may be less than yesterday's. Tomorrow's might be more. And it may change by the hour. I may be able to give you a whole lot more energy today, but after this interview, maybe my 100% looks a little bit less. I will always give you 100% of whatever I have. But I had to recognize that what I have is going to change. And that was the best gift I gave my brain, to not beat myself up and say, oh, I should be doing things. I should. So I've removed should out of my vocabulary so that I don't should on myself. So I hope that's helpful. But that's where I am today, is really helping people learn from my simple tasks and give grace and permission so they can love what they do, love how they do it, and feel connected and off that island of alone.
Yeah, there's so much in there. That's why I really wanted you to share your story, because there's so much in just your journey and your story of starting with your father's diagnosis and his journey, that we can pull gold nuggets from, because you've transformed your life due to what happened with your father. So that's one huge thing in itself. That's hugely transformational for you. You're on one path in one direction, and boom, all of a sudden it needs to shift, and you recognize that and did it. Two, you're going through your own diagnoses now, 3 diagnoses that you are moving through, and you've learned a lot of lessons along the way as well. And as women, like you said, women, female, and minority, and we are always trying to take care of everybody else, right? We have a habit of taking care of everybody else, and we put ourselves last. So we don't fill our cups up in order to we fill everybody else's cup and forget ours. Where I like this whole point of, one of the biggest points of this podcast is, no matter what area of your life that you're maybe it's not a 10, maybe it's like a 4, and we want to move it up, like overfill your cup first, like overflow it so it can pour into those other cups. And you're doing that. You're a beautiful example of that. So thank you for doing that and sharing with us that it's okay to give yourself grace, release that perfectionism, because I know for me, I was trying to do everything and it had to look perfect. But in the meantime, I was running myself ragged. So we talked about that right before we came on here today, is releasing that. We're like both recovering perfectionists. So if any of you are recovering perfectionists, or you're perfectionists and you want to go into recovery, you want to join us in the recovery section of the journey, then definitely know that you're not alone. And that's another piece that you shared, is that you realized you're not alone, right? We all think we're alone, but there's communities of people out there. So you have share what your community looks like and what you do to help people.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah, that island of alone is incredibly isolating. And you do feel in that moment that you can't reach out for help. And so if you do have the mindset of that female and that minority mindset, asking for help shows that you are incapable of doing something. So I had that track in my head. So asking for help was always a struggle. I needed to go figure it out. And when this health journey that I have now, and even when my dad got sick, I just retreated and I just said, I'm going to buck up. I'm going to power through. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, powering through is a horrible, horrible, horrible strategy. It is highly ineffective, because what happens is you start to teach those that you work with, your family members, that this is how they should treat themselves. And I don't know a single woman that would tell their best friend to treat themselves that way, the way they're treating their own personal self. And so that was kind of the awareness that I had. And so just to kind of build on something you said, and then what I'm working on now. So go back to 2003, when I'm going through this whole stress journey with my father. One of the things that just struck me like lightning was listening to a cardiologist for the Go Red for Women campaign from the American Heart Association. So my father had just passed from cancer. My grandfather had passed of cancer within months of my dad's diagnosis, and I had a couple other family members pass. So cancer was what was in my radar. And if you were to ask me what I was going to struggle with, it would be cancer. But I'm listening to this cardiologist, and they said women are at greater risk of dying of heart disease because of the stress that they are under, stress being the major indicator. I must have had the look of, yeah, right, because I got called on. And they said, well, what do you think you're going to die of? And I listed all the things. I'm like, it's going to be cancer. We're going to be sweet about it because we have diabetes in my family, and we're going to forget about it because we have Alzheimer's. It's probably one of those 3. This is how I answered them.
I love your answer.
Yeah. And so they looked at me and they go, no. Asked a few more questions, found out about my mom and I caregiving for my dad. Said, you and your mom were at greater risk of dying of heart disease than your dad dying of the rare cancers he had. Wow. What? I didn't believe that. Now, I could go on, and ultimately learning that is why I ended up partnering and being a volunteer speaker for the American Heart Association, because women dismiss stress. It's not a real thing. It's stress. We just dismiss it and we just keep moving on. And so when so I had to move away. So one of the additional stressors is in the middle of my dad's, when he was kind of in remission, I had to move away because I lost my job. And so now, okay, how are we going to do this? So I'm trying to figure things out. So I would come home as often as I could to give my mom a break. And so I'm giving my mom a break. My mom would start doing chores around the house. Okay, that's not a break. So I would tell her, Mom, who's going to take care of Dad's caregiver if you don't take care of her? Who's going to take care of Dad if you don't take care of Dad's caregiver? You got to take care of the caregiver. You're the caregiver. You have an hour before his next thing that I don't know how to do. So take a nap, go shopping, pray, whatever you need to do, go take that hour. And it was in that moment I realized the power of rest and recovery. Fast forward to where I'm at now. So to bring it all full circle, I am absolutely understanding the power of stress on my body, what that can do to me, what can trigger to me, how I'm teaching people how to treat me. So like I said, I thought I had it figured out. And then poof, life said, no, we've got another lesson for you to learn, that you get the opportunity to learn. And so that's what I'm learning right now. And so I would say to any of you watching, take a breath, give yourself permission, pursue excellence, eliminate the shoulds. Do not dismiss stress. Do not just say, oh, I'm stressed. Don't do that. It's significant. And what's great about it is you can control it. You are in control. The situation doesn't get solved, but you are in control of how you can manage that. And there are simple things that you can do that don't take a lot of time. So one of those that you alluded to is the community. I can no longer really leave the house. I am bound by this wonderful, technology that keeps us connected. So for the first 2 years of diagnosis, I was no longer going out being a keynote speaker. All of my associations and affiliations, I could no longer attend. I was a national board member of the American Businesswomen's Association, and I could not attend those meetings anymore. As a past officer, I didn't realize how much I needed that and how much I would miss that. Mm-hmm. And so I started sitting here thinking, okay, clearly this is going to be longer than a 30-day fix. This is not going to be something that can happen and you move on. What can I do? What do I want to do? And so I took 16 years of workshops, trainings, and for networking that I did for businesses, but also for corporations, and I pivoted it. And instead of launching a course, which I could have done, I decided to build the community I wish I would have right now. I was like, this is what's missing. I can teach you how to do this, or I can give you the experience. So it was self-serving to some extent because it allowed me to reconnect, but also to share with everybody else. Because you see, when I started to really talk, I was already creating this, but then all of a sudden COVID hit. And everybody was like, Laura, that networking thing you were working on, that project you were thinking of working on, have you launched it yet? Because now everybody was on the island of alone that I was. I just had 3 years experience in the virtual space ahead of everybody. So for me, things got incredibly busy and I became in great demand. So I decided to launch this project of networking, and that's where the Down and Dirty networking community came in. I believe there's 2 types of networking. There's the traditional networking where you're transacting business leads and job offers, but then there's this other one, the relational networking, where it's about having meaningful conversations to build lasting and authentic relationships. This is the piece that I needed. And I know so many women were needing and so many business professionals were needing. And so I was like, no, I want to cut the fluff of traditional networking. No sales pitches, no 30-second commercials, none of it. Let's have meaningful conversations in a very safe space. And oh, by the way, let's do it with a diverse perspective. So we get 360-degree perspectives, because it's the first thing I did when I got diagnosed. I went to my clients that I knew that had the same diagnosis and say, what can you tell me? I wanted to shorten the runway to remission. That needed to happen right now. And I started realizing that is where your support system can really lie. Hey, I'm going through this right now. I'm having WTS, which is what I call worthless tool syndrome. And I need someone to get me out of this hole. I'm in a very negative rabbit hole. Who's got an idea? Or, hey, I am facing this new challenge at work. Who's got a solution for me that can help me? Wouldn't it be better to ask for best practices? Not do the work, but ask for assistance, challenge ideas and resources. That's a very different pivot than I'm asking for help because it appears I need you to do the work for me. That's not what that is. I'm going to go do the work. I just don't want to have to research it and trial and error and throw mud against the wall and see what sticks. I'd rather know what works. I don't have the energy to trial and error anymore. I need to be super effective with what I do. So what I would say to those is that's the community that I built, but you have the opportunity to revise the tracks if that's in your brain, like I was, and say, all right, I'm going to be relational focused. Who do I know? Who do I know that either has the resource, idea, solution I need, or can introduce me to somebody?
I love that you talked about both sides of networking, because most of us just think about the traditional, which if you're an introvert, anybody's an introvert like me, it's very scary. I like to walk into a room, I kind of sit back, see what's going on, and then I'll figure out where I want to go. But so the relational side of it was completely new to me until I learned about it from you. So tell us more about that, as far as like for women who are feeling like they are on an island alone by themselves, how can they find a community or a support system? Because when you're a mom, a partner, and you're in a relationship, you are juggling a career or a business, maybe you're launching a business, or you're moving in the next phase of your business, and you're trying to juggle and hold it all together, and you don't feel like you maybe even have time for other outside relationships. So what can we do?
Awesome. Great question. And yes, for the record, I'm an introvert as well. And I'm also socially awkward. So I promise you, I use all of these solutions myself to keep it simple and conserve energy. So here's what I would say. First of all, adopt a relational networking mindset. And let me take a step back. I think networking is three things. Networking is a skill. So learning how to do maybe 30-second commercials and elevator pitches in the traditional networking side of things, that's a skill. How to work a room when you're at an event, that's a skill. And how to build relationships, that's also a skill. So I feel like it's a skill. I feel like it is a mindset, because if you have the wrong mindset, you're going to get the wrong results. So you have to make sure that your mindset aligns with what you want to have done. And then third, I think networking is an activity. Hence doing an event or one-to-one, it's an activity, a thing you do. So I would encourage you to first adopt a relational networking mindset. Even if you're a business owner and you're like, yeah, but I need leads and clients, I need those transactions, I need to be in transactional land. Great, but adopt a relational mindset in the way that you approach it. I promise you, I've done it. I have been a part of every other traditional networking group that's possible. At one point, I was a member of about 5 traditional networking groups because I was launching my business after my dad had died. And so I saw what worked. I was the crazy person that tried to sell you stuff at every turn. I'm going to tell you, don't do that. But I shifted. Once I knew better and I would do something better, I got different results. And it is why to this day, people that I haven't connected with in a while still remember me. Hey, Laura, about that networking, could you come and speak to our group? Are you still associated with the American Businesswomen's Association? I'd love an introduction. And I love that that's how they remember me. Now, let's talk the relational piece. The relational can happen one-to-one, where you're just touching base and you're leveraging questions. That's the number one skill I would tell you, is leverage questions. And so if you're sitting there and you're like, this is too much and my brain can't even think of where to go, because I've been there, here's one question I want you to leverage and use over and over and over. And it comes from speaker Amanda Gore. What is the best thing that's happened to you recently? This one question will shift your entire conversations and your vibrational energy. So if you're that busy mom that just can't handle one more negative statement because you've had it, or you're that busy professional, if I ask someone, how are you? And they verbally tell me, oh, I don't have the energy to take that. This question will solve that for you, which is why I love this question. I've used it for years. What is the best thing that's happened to you recently? Now, the brilliance of this question is the ending. You have the opportunity to personalize it. So for example, Heidi, if you and I haven't spoken in a week, for example, I can then adjust it. Hey, Heidi, what's the best thing that's happened to you in this past week? Or since we last spoke, or in the past month? And if you can't remember, you just say recently. What's the best thing that's happened to you recently? And you keep it just really light and bright. It's going to require that they say a positive answer. You're going to learn something deeper than a superficial answer. So it's going to be more meaningful. Number 2, reciprocity is they're going to ask you, which means now with all of the negative things going on in your life, you are being forced to look at for something positive that's the best thing. Hey, maybe it's being on this call, getting out of bed. You're going to be forced. And what I have learned is a negative thought and a positive thought cannot coexist in your brain. The default setting is you hear a positive thought. So maybe something I just said, and you're like, oh my God, that's a great idea. So now positive thoughts in your brain, and you're like, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden, this little thing that I feel sits on all of our shoulders that I call the yeah, but. It's a cute little cuddly little thing. All of a sudden goes, yeah, but you can't do that. Or yeah, but that's not going to work for you. or whatever it's going to say to you. So now that thought pushes positive thought out and negative one gets roots, grows babies, has a field day. You have to be really intentional about putting that positive thought back in because the default setting is the negative thought. So this question forces that issue, forces you to put that positive thought. And I love asking it because it'll raise my vibrational energy. So on a day like today, when my pain is really high, cognitively I'm struggling, I will be asking that question from people to raise my energy to help me get through the day, but then also to learn what's new and exciting for them. What can I celebrate? How can I be in a more positive space? So I would say, number one, leverage that question. Number two, ask it of everybody. So I'm going to share a quick example. It's one of my favorite examples. I was doing this workshop for a company. It was a leadership workshop, and they wanted to improve morale and interdepartment communication. And so that's why they hired me for networking. And it was the first time I was hired for networking, and it wasn't a sales team. So I was like, okay. So I had them do this exercise, and it was over the span of two different weeks. So the homework was every day they needed to ask someone what was the best thing that happened to them in their day. And it could not be anybody that they knew or normally interacted with at work. It had to be outside, and they couldn't do it on social media. It had to be either in person or Zoom or however they did it. So a couple days just before they're supposed to report on their homework, this engineer admits. So he was telling me, he goes, I have to admit, confess, because everyone was telling on him. He's like, yes, I have to confess. I had forgotten to do my homework. It was late night. I'd worked really late. It's like 7 o'clock at night or whatever it was. He goes, I still needed to buy groceries for dinner. And he goes, I put it on Facebook, not thinking that he has a lot of coworkers that are on Facebook with him. So they called him out. That's not the homework that Laura said. So now he's in line at the grocery store, buying his groceries for his dinner. And he's just, he's so defeated. He's so deflated. So he asked the cashier. He's like, okay, what's the best thing that's happened to you? The cashier starts thinking, and she starts telling him, well, I attended an audition today. And she's checking all his things out. It's going boop, boop. He's checking it out. He goes, really? Tell me more about the audition. So come to find out, she had this audition. She's waiting to hear if she's going to have a call back. He gets checked out. He was in the express lane. So he stands to the side, continues to talk with her. Well, now the line behind her is listening in on this conversation, and they're joining in. And anybody that got checked out just kind of stands with him. Soon there's like this crowd around her. They're so excited to hear about her experience. And finally he says, well, would you be willing to share what you auditioned with? She goes, sure. Checks out the last person. She had sang a piece. She decides to start singing the piece for all of them there. They all applaud. Everyone in the store is like, what's going on? He says that he went home feeling the best he'd ever been. His vibrational energy was through the roof. And every night he went back, found her lane, goes, how you doing? You got a call back yet? He says, Laura, it was something that I could look forward to. And I said, how many times have you told this story to people? He says, over and over. I said, how did it feel for you to retell that story? He goes, oh, I relived it. It was great. I said, what did it do for the person you told the story to? He goes, it lifted their vibrational energy. And so now when I was talking to them, they're like, hey, have you heard from your cashier? What's going on? I'm going to tell you, relational networking happens everywhere. It's a mindset. So it doesn't take time. Just build it into your psyche and just start asking those questions. Now, if you want to look more for our community, there are different ways you can do that, whether it be parents, whether it's busy moms. You can find that when you're ready for that. But what I have found is a lot of us, when we're really stressed, that just buries us. We don't have that. The thought of joining an autoimmune support group or a Lyme support group right at diagnosis, yeah, that wasn't going to work for me. So honor where you are, do what you need to do, but adopt that mindset and know that support is around and you have no idea what's available to you. He had no clue that a cashier would give him the thing he needed that he wasn't even asking for.
Wow, I love that question. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that you shared basically rinse and repeat. So you don't have to just go into a room or go somewhere and ask it once, you keep asking it. So rinse and repeat that process and keep raising that by your vibrational energy. And in the process, you're raising the vibration energy of the people and the room around you as well. And you can do this with your kids. Like after school, instead of saying, how was your day? And you get the fine, like ask that question because it makes them think. It stops them in their, I've done it. It stops them in their tracks and they're like, what? That's a different question. Like, and they can start getting excited. And then while they're at school and you're asking that on a daily basis, they're excited and they're thinking like, was that the best thing that happened to me today? Or is this the best thing that I'm going to share today? Like they get excited. And that question by you sharing the story. So thank you for that of your client or the person that you know, the gentleman, but also just sharing the question and how to use it, how to utilize it, got me excited to go now talk to somebody outside of my house, even if it's my neighbor or somebody in the store, or if I walk into an event, a room where usually I would be like, okay, let's get ready for this. What am I going to ask? And that pressure is on. There's no pressure. We can now glide in and have some fun. And when you are in a positive space and you're having fun, everything shifts. Your relationship shifts. Your physical appearance shifts. Your health also shifts, correct? There's so many transformations that happen when we're living in a place of positivity and also place of joy and fun. So amazing. I am just like so lit up right now, Laura. Thank you so much for all of that. So Laura Morlando, the Stress Commando, she alleviates stress with so many people. So Laura, and I love that you shared too, like we get to recognize when we're stressed and it's not okay to sit in it. It's not okay to just keep powering through it and keep going. So when we feel it, we should recognize it. And then I'm guessing like pause or find some ways to start releasing the stress, whether it's breath or community or just being okay with asking for support. Like pick up the phone, call a friend, like just say, hey, I'm having a moment. Can you chat? Find an accountability partner, right? That you trust that will raise you up when you're going something through that, like that. So how do we find you, Laura?
Well, if you search Laura Morlando, the Stress Commando, you'll find me. Or if you just put Stress Commando, you'll find me. LinkedIn's the best way to reach me. So if you look for Laura Morlando, the Stress Commando on LinkedIn, that's the best way. But I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, so you can find me all there. And what I would say though, to just kind of piggyback on the whole stress piece, not only is it that positive question that you can use everywhere and raising that vibrational energy, but it's sometimes shifting the focus. And it's okay to not be okay. Don't feel that you have to be positive. If you're having a moment, have a moment, get through it. Give yourself permission to have that. You're giving everyone else permission to have that. So I would really encourage, you can look, I go live every Wednesday. I give a bunch of different stress tips. And here's the last piece. So I say I'm the Stress Commando and I combat stress one solution at a time. I understand that combating stress is the wrong thing to do, but it's what we all understand because we're going to combat it. The more you push, the more resistance you're going to get. The actual way to combat stress is to sit for a second, relax, lean into, okay, wait a minute. What do I need? What can I do right now? I've had to really think about that. Here's all the things I need, but what can I do? Might be a very small list. Great. Then what's the one thing I'm going to do? We can't do three things. So what's the one thing I'm going to do right now to always be moving forward? And so I would encourage people to leverage that. Simplify. What can I do? What do I need? And rest is a need, and rest is doing something. It is doing something. I think that's what Winnie the Pooh says. It's his favorite something to do is doing nothing, right? Doing nothing is his favorite something to do, something to that aversion. And so I've learned that rest is doing something that's helping you move forward. And rest isn't necessarily sleep. Sleep and rest are different things. So make sure you're building in rest, power up and recovery time for yourself, because it will allow you to show up in the way that you want. So those would be the things I would say. And if you want more tips about that, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah, reach out to Laura for sure. And Laura, that was one of the words that we used when I introduced you is connect. So really connecting with the feel the feels. It's okay. And as women, we don't want to feel the feels, right? We're emotional beings, and it's okay to feel the feels and take that moment for yourself to do so. So this has been such an incredible conversation. I don't want it to end, but I know you're a busy lady. So I just want to say, I'm so grateful for you and for your time here. What can we do to support you? What is it that we can do for you?
Number one, take care of you. Then my purpose has been fulfilled, is to help at least one person put themselves first and see things in a different framework. And then two, if you're feeling like you're on that island of alone, reach out to me and maybe I can plug you into Down and Dirty Networking. Maybe you don't want to go through the work of reaching out to everybody. Maybe you're feeling a little social awkward. Down and Dirty Networking is a community where I take all the awkward out. You just have meaningful conversations. Come test drive it. See if you want to learn more. And if it's for you, great. Bring a friend. If you feel more comfortable to bring a friend, fantastic. Do that. because I want to get people off the island of alone. That is what I want to do. And I'm on a mission to really create a movement of relational networking. I want people on board with this concept and realizing this is how you get off that island of alone. So if I can help with that, and you're on board with joining the relational networking movement, I would love some help in getting the word out about our online. It's a virtual online community. So it's super simple, super safe, and super effective.
I love how you're super simple about everything. Keep it simple. Simplicity is key. And as humans and as women, we tend to overcomplicate everything, and it doesn't have to be hard. So yeah, I hear you. I'm there with you, Laura. So reach out to Laura, check her out on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all the places. Go see what she's all about. Get the support from her you need, because she is the master of releasing stress, and she makes it as simple as possible for you to do so. So I love you, Laura. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for being part of the Be S.H.E podcast. Please join us for future episodes, and don't forget to go check out Laura Morlando, the Stress Commando. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Heidi. This was awesome. Thanks, everyone.